Hey guys, so today I'm going to be talking about Melbourne Writers Festival Day 2. So yesterday I attended the last day of Melbourne Writers Festival for myself, which was bittersweet. I always love Melbourne Writers Festival whenever it comes around. There's so much to do. I always get to hang out with my friends and we get to nerd out about exciting push events and authors, and it's just a lot of fun. But also it's really busy and hectic for me as well. Obviously this year too I was asked to be a digital storyteller, which was just fantastic. I'm still not over it. I feel blessed to have been asked to be a part of something that has always inspired me. Melbourne's Writers Festival is something that maybe one day I'd like to be a part of in a different way, if I can ever write. It brings the Melbourne bookish community together in so many different ways and everyone just gets to nerd out and I just love it. But yeah, as I said, yesterday was the last day, so I want to talk about some of the events, insert some of the footage that I took at the events and everything like that. So I went to 3 events yesterday. The first one was Rape Culture. This panel was really interesting and intriguing, times hard to listen to. It definitely wasn't an easy panel where you could kind of sit and laugh and smile and joke about. Obviously, as you can tell, it dealt with really serious topics. There was one woman in particular on the panel who was Indian, and she talked a lot about how marital rape in India is still not criminalized. And just listening to her stories and her tales, it was just really tough to hear, but also something so important to hear as well. The panelists also talked about things such as rape threats online and how to deal with them and the experiences they had with them. Again, tough to hear, but also really important, I felt. And as I said, the panel was really intriguing. It made me think about a lot of things, and afterwards myself and my friend went out for lunch and we just talked about it the whole time and had a really meaningful discussion ourselves, which wouldn't have happened without that panel. One thing that I would have loved is that there was a little bit of talk of domestic violence with women and children, and obviously rape with women, but there wasn't really anything of the other spectrum of, you know, men being the victims of domestic violence or men being the victims of rape. And I understand this was maybe the panel for it, nor did they have, I guess, the right panelists to talk about that discussion maybe, but I would really love to see a panel discussing those things. I think it's a thing that is not really talked about a lot, and I think it's something that we really should be talking about. So that's something I would really love to see in the future. But overall, Rape Culture was such a fantastic panel. I really enjoyed it. It was really interesting and intriguing, and I'll insert some of the footage here.
I think there's 2 things to take on. One of that is when it happened, it was in 2012, and there was no right-wing government at that time in India, so I got close to 3,000 tweets in one night, including, oh, if this bitch should be gang raped and it should be telecast alive, somebody get acid ready, blah blah blah, a lot of death threats, a lot of rape threats. And at the time I was like, yeah, all of this is hate. But right now, we now live in an India where people who are accused of eating beef are actually lynched to death. So because, you know, a right-wing Hindu fanatic government in power does make this kind of thing actually translate into action. So that's one thing. But what I remember very clearly was, yeah, going to the police, who of course did nothing, but also reporting to Twitter. And when I reported to Twitter, I still have this email that came back from Twitter. We have analyzed your complaint and it is free speech. So we cannot take the tweet down. And the tweet was not taken down. But when a similar thing happens in Britain to a white woman MP, Jess Phillips, then Twitter removes it. So the thing is that for capitalism to operate, they would do nice things if it's related to, you know, a more powerful country like Britain, or if it involves a white woman who is at the center of it. But in Indian women, it was free speech according to Twitter standards in 2012 for somebody to say, oh, this bitch should be gang raped and it should be telecasted alive.
They have been surprised as well that this was a problem. And what I'm often asked is isn't the real problem anonymity online? And, you know, shouldn't we, you know, just allow the state to crack down more on online freedom? And isn't this the situation? Well, no, these guys aren't hiding. They're really easy to find. One of these guys was just an estate agent in Chingford with a wife and kids, and I got an email from his wife that I had nothing to do with exposing. I got an email from one of these guys' wives saying, you know, he's just a good person, and you talk about women apologizing for this stuff, he's a good person, he just does this to de-stress, he didn't realize. These people they think that it's okay to do this stuff because women on the internet, particularly women who, you know, are not white, are not straight, are not British, have a certain point of view. You know, they're just theirs to abuse for fun, for stress relief, because it's apparently very stressful being an estate agent in Chingford.
After after that, I went to a panel that I actually wasn't going to go to. So after going out to lunch, my friend was going to this panel, but then she realized she had a spare ticket, and so I, hopped along and went along with her. So this panel was Decolonizing Feminism. This panel I found really interesting, but at the same time, a lot of the discussion was hard. It definitely wasn't easy to hear. The panelists themselves are very pessimistic, which is something that they stated themselves a lot that they were, and so it definitely wasn't a very uplifting panel. I still feel it was very interesting and intriguing. I didn't really get any footage of that panel, but it was definitely something to keep in mind and have that discussion of things that I hadn't really thought of before. And I believe that's one of the really good things about Melbourne's Writers' Festival, is that it can definitely make you aware of things that you haven't really thought about before and things like that. As well as, obviously, getting your book signed by fantastic authors and getting to meet them. The last panel of the day myself and my friend went to was Pop Culture and Feminism, and that was my favourite panel. I was really excited for this panel, and it definitely did live up to the hype. I loved pretty much everything that was discussed in the topic, but I'll name just a couple of things that really stood out to me. The first was, I guess they talked a bit about call-out culture. So, calling out a creator or a company for something, and how that's affected feminism and how that affects day-to-day life now and in companies and what they're doing now to avoid call-out culture. I also really loved the moderator of this panel. I felt like the moderator was one of the panelists. She would answer some questions, so the audience would ask, who was your pop culture feminist icon, and the panelists would answer, and the moderator would also answer. She was really interesting and funny, and she just felt like one of the panelists. I really loved the moderator. Having such a good moderator is so important for a panel, and I think Melbourne Writers' Festival always choose really good moderators for their panels, but this one was just top of their game. They talked about some recommendations of what they've been loving at the minute, and one of the panelists talked about a TV show that I'd heard of before called Younger. So it's basically a series where these people work in a publishing house in their day-to-day lives, and she recommended it because one of the characters in there was pansexual. Hello, yes, I am pansexual. I want to work in publishing. I love publishing. Give me this TV show. I have heard mixed things about it because I've heard that it does trash talk YA a little bit, but I started watching it last night when I got home. I'm still not too sure what I think of it, but it's very easy to binge watch. I'm on episode 11 currently, so that must say something. I so far haven't come across much trash talking about YA at all, but I guess we'll see how we go. And it's intriguing and it's funny and it's interesting, and I'm quite enjoying it so far. So, recommendations. I just found the pop culture panel though as a whole just really funny and interesting and thought-provoking, so I'll insert some footage of that panel here.
Think of a time, like the first time I guess really, that you engaged with a feminist text or with a text in a feminist way, and your brain just lit up, like things just kind of clicked and fell into place, like, oh, this is how I see the world, or this makes sense for me as a way to engage with culture.
I remember I was like in year 10, so like 15 at school, and our teacher wanted to kind of like ease us into talking about, I don't think she even used the word feminism, I think she was like women's history or something like that, something very like tepid, and she showed us that it was 2005, so like she showed us a Pink music video, and it was the video for like, congratulations on your video, Vanguard or Pink, but she showed us the video for Stupid Girls, which at the time I was like, oh my god, of course, like the media is selling us like these images of Jessica Simpson and like all of these like hot sexy video girls, but since then I've now gone back and been like, what was it about this thing that made me so like keen, and like, yeah, like you said, like my brain like lit up and I was like, yeah, the patriarchy. But now, like, I look at it now and I'm like, oh wait, this is like so like kind of essentialist of being like, why do we tell girls they can be hot and we don't tell them they can be the president? Because it's like there's no middle ground. There's no kind of like empowerment in sexuality in that kind of like keeping those things distinct.
Yeah, there's shame. Yeah.
Well, I kind of grew up, like my mother was a feminist who was always writing kind of angry letters to the local paper, and my stepmother is like a feminist psychoanalyst, so I kind of grew up in this like weird small hippie community where the only books we had were these really kind of weird feminist picture books, and my dad was a child psychologist as well, so I grew up reading either picture books about stranger danger, which he would give to the kids that he kind of had in his practice, or kind of really fruitily illustrated watercolour picture books made by kind of like 70s second wave feminists. So I don't know, it's kind of like been there my whole life. I don't think I ever read like a normal like picture book until I started selling children's books years later.
It was just like in the water you drank.
Yeah, and well, in Thames we only had feminism in the water because we were not allowed fluoride.
Yes. Social media, particularly Instagram and Twitter. I guess, like, do you see poetry as pop culture itself, or do you see it as a filter for pop culture? What's your take on that?
Is poetry about culture? It's up in the air still. I don't know. I think that it yeah, we're just going to talk back and forth here. It's interesting the way it's being disseminated, I think. I mean, I think that there is always like a hunger for poetry. I think that the access is not always there. It's a difference now where you can scroll down like your Tumblr dashboard or like your Twitter timeline, and you can see, particularly now that we have inline images, you can see an entire poem as you pass. So it's like it's a capsule form that was made, I think, for these particular mediums, or they have dovetailed very, very nicely with them. And it's also something where you can leave this sort of stream of experience, because I do think that timeline is an experience. It's an experience of information, and you can leave that, and you can read a poem, and you can return to it, and it's just long enough that you can have that little time with it. And people really appreciate that, I think.
So sadly, that's all the footage I got of Melbourne Writers Festival. I went with my friend yesterday who isn't into vlogging, doesn't like being on camera, so I didn't really want to pull out the camera and make her uncomfortable at any time, so I just kind of took footage of the events. I was going to hopefully go to Melbourne Writers Festival today for Harry Potter Day, which I definitely would have vlogged, but unfortunately life got in the way and I just couldn't make it. However, my experience at Melbourne Writers Festival was fantastic. I had such a fantastic time. I really hope you guys have enjoyed my live tweets, my Instagram posts, my Snapchats, and my videos on Melbourne Writers Festival. I've enjoyed so much being a digital storyteller for this fantastic event, and I feel really privileged, as I said, to have been asked to be one. If you've never attended Melbourne Writers Festival and you ever do get the opportunity, I would highly recommend it. There's always a panel for everyone, and as I said, it's just really thought-provoking and interesting, and you get to hang out with the best bookish community, and what more could you ask for? And if you did end up going to Melbourne Writers Festival this year, please let me know what your favourite event was. Mine definitely was the Angie Thomas event, which I vlogged a bit of last week. Oh my gosh, it was amazing. I'm still not over it. So thank you for watching. Like this video if you liked it, and subscribe if you'd like to see more videos from me. I will see you next time. Okay, bye!